Hey guys, it's the Militant Prophecy channel, and what I'd like to go over today is talk about some of the recent allegations against R. Kelly, and some of them having to do with him being a cult leader or starting a cult, allegedly. I also want to just discuss some of the characteristics of a cult a little bit later on in the video and kind of compare whether some of the allegations against R. Kelly do demonstrate some characteristics of a cult. So one of the things that sticks out is that this man has such a long history of allegations that you need timelines, you need charts to keep up with the allegation. Just starting back from 1991, whenever he married a 15-year-old pop star, Aaliyah. During this time, actually a few years later, he had the hit single that came out, "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number." And of course it was a very catchy tune. But you know, as you look back, I know sometimes hindsight is 20/20, but maybe that wasn't the best song in the world after all. And of course, it's documented that during this time, R. Kelly was 24 and Aaliyah was 15, and so you know it was actually against the law, Illinois state law, because the age of consent was 17. It wasn't too many years later whenever Tiffany Hawkins claimed in a 1996 lawsuit that she began having sex with R. Kelly when she was 15 and he was 24. Hawkins was an aspiring singer, and according to the court documents covered by Chicago Times, Hawkins' relationship with Kelly ended in 1994 when she turned 18, and Hawkins then slit her wrist in a suicide attempt. So there was also allegations in this particular case as far as there being allegedly group sex. Another woman named as a witness in the Hawkins lawsuit said that she too spent time with Kelly and Hawkins in a recording studio when she was 14 years old, a 14-year-old high school freshman, and R. Kelly was 24 with the two girls when they first started hanging out. And so there was allegations of a group sex there with underage girls. And then there was also the allegation where Kelly picked up a girl on the night of her prom and impregnated her and paid her abortion. So according to the Sun-Times reporter, there was a young woman that he picked up on the evening of her prom, and the relationship lasted a year and a half or 2 years. He impregnated her, paid for her abortion, and then had his goons drive her, none of which she wanted. And then there's the Tracy Sampson situation, which happened in 2001 when Tracy was 17 years old. She wrote in her lawsuit, "I was coerced into receiving oral sex from a girl I did not want to have sex with. I was often treated as his personal sex object and cast aside. He would tell me to come to his studio and have sex with me, then tell me to go. He often tried to control every aspect of my life, including who I would see and where I would go." And of course, on Kelly's alleged sex crime timeline chart, whatever you want to put it, things get even more interesting in 2001 and 2002, where you had two sex tapes. The first one had to do with the videotape that was sent anonymously to the Chicago Sun-Times. And this particular tape, there was no arrest made, but then a second tape surfaces in 2002, and this also was sent to the Sun-Times. And this one is one that gets really gross, and it's pretty graphic, and I don't really want to get into the sick details of this, but once again it involves an underage girl who was 14 at the time, and it's later found out that this girl is on tape. It is seen by various witnesses in the courtroom, obviously the jury. And then it is known that this girl is actually R. Kelly's goddaughter. And that actually ends up being confirmed by R. Kelly's brother, Kerry Kelly. He goes on record saying that the singer was the one in this disturbing sex tape. So you see that as the years go, as you go down the timeline of the alleged allegations of R. Kelly, things start to get sicker, more depraved, and just stranger and weirder as time goes by. Of course, there's more allegations in 2005 and 2008, but just to kind of fast forward all the way to 2017, and just to keep note, in all of these cases, they were all either settled, charges were dropped, or acquitted. And that's why we say allegedly these things happen. But you do notice it gets more depraved as we go on. But let's go ahead and hit some of the cult allegations, because I think that's really important in this case. And what you have is you have R. Kelly's reportedly holding multiple women against their will in an abusive sex cult, according to a disturbing BuzzFeed News report. Concerned parents who haven't seen their daughters in more than a year, as well as former members of the Trapped in the Closet singers entourage, pretty strange name for a group, Trapped in the Closet, told BuzzFeed that Kelly keeps a group of young women at his homes in Atlanta and Chicago, where he controls every aspect of their lives. The R&B legend reportedly invites women into his circle under the pretense of developing their music careers, but instead begins a sexual relationship that requires them to call him daddy and ask him permission to leave assigned rooms. The 50-year-old allegedly films his sexual encounters with these women, all of whom are of legal consenting age in this report. Oh, well, there's a change of pace, as he's all of a sudden it's with legal consenting age women, so allegedly, which he shares with a group of friends. You have to ask for food, and you have to ask to go to the bathroom. The singer's former personal assistant from 2013 to 2014, Cheryl Mack, said, Kelly is a master at mind control. He is a puppet master. So I think it's a little bit interesting that it's his personal assistant who's actually saying these things. But I want you to notice that, words such as mind control, puppet master, cult are being brought up in these allegations. And when you look at like other ladies, man, words like player or words like womanizer, that really isn't what's coming up. And when you look at Hugh Hefner, I mean, he liked to live with women, and clearly, he lived a wild and lascivious lifestyle, but no one ever called him a cult leader as far as I'm concerned. I mean, no one ever called him a master at mind control, but R. Kelly, on the other hand, is getting called that. So I think that's a little bit different, a little bit interesting when you compare the two. So when it comes to cult leaders, what is one thing that comes to mind? One thing that comes to mind is words like mind control. Words like he had complete control over this group of people and he made them submit to him. Whenever I think of a cult leader, I think of someone that used mind control, that exerted their control over people, and was somehow able to be very persuasive, very convincing. In other cults that may be trying to convince you that if you follow us, if you submit to this, very exclusive form of beliefs, and you'll go to heaven. In R. Kelly's case, it's like, hey, if you follow me, if you listen to my advice, if you submit to me, then I could get you a record deal. But if you actually research some of the characteristics of a cult, whether it's a sex cult or whether it's a religious cult or whatever, I mean, there's some characteristics that are very similar. For example, submission. The members of a cult are expected to submit completely to their leader. And you see that in the case of Kelly. Exclusivity. Hey, you're not going to get a record deal unless you come through me. Everybody else is going to shut you down, but I'm going to be the one that actually helps you get a record deal. And then, of course, you have control, which is something that is in all the allegations against Kelly since the very beginning in the 90s, where he's exerting his control, even where you can eat, where you can sleep, where you can bathe. You have isolation, like for example when the parents have released statements about their daughters that they haven't seen them in over a year. That is another characteristic of a cult. And then there's appearance standards, and whether it's the for example in the Heaven's Gate cult where they had to wear certain shoes, or David Koresh had his people, they had to wear a certain attire. Well, and Kelly and his allegations, he has those women dressing exactly the way he wants them to dress. So when you look at the characteristics of the cult and you compare them to the allegations against R. Kelly, it certainly makes you wonder. But that's all I have for tonight, guys. Y'all have a good night. Have a blessed day. Please consider subscribing, and have a good one.